The Phoebus cartel was somewhat of a real-life, proven conspiracy in and of themselves. This was a group made up from the head execs of the biggest light bulb companies around the world, and when they met for the first time on December 23, 1924 in Geneva, Switzerland, the Phoebus cartel had one sinister goal in mind: to get all their engineers to manufacture light bulbs that burned out faster. This would in turn shorten the lifespan of an average bulb from 2,500 hours to just 1,000, literally forcing people to buy twice as many bulbs. And despite the cartel only lasting until 1939, short-lived filament bulbs have pretty much been standard for almost a century. This is the concept of planned obsolescence. And companies have been doing this kind of shit to their customers since the dawn of modern business. But what exactly is it? Planned obsolescence is the strategy of manufacturing consumer goods to become quickly outdated, forcing you to replace them. Companies can implement planned obsolescence in many ways, and it takes many forms. You go to the grocery store and they bag your items in plastic bags. Plastic bags are made to be thrown away at some point. Same with disposable razors. It's literally in the name. And it's actually one of the oldest examples of planned obsolescence. Bringing us to one King Camp Gillette. Gillette wanted to come up with a product that was extremely useful, but also had a short lifespan. A product that would keep customers coming back to purchase more. So in 1895, he came up with the idea for Gillette disposable razors. His plan was to create a razor handle that customers would need to buy less often, and pair that with disposable blades that customers would have to buy more often. And after nearly 6 years of testing, he finally was able to produce steel that was hard, thin, and inexpensive enough for commercial production, literally revolutionizing the way people shave to this day. And he did it all planning for his products to be obsolete after a period of time. But nowadays, corporations have evolved, and the concept of planned obsolescence has evolved along with them. In the automotive and tech industries, planned obsolescence is still there, but it tends to take a little more of a backseat. Corporations simply can't afford for those types of products to be made with completely unreliable parts. They will instead use perceived obsolescence to give you the impression that your current product is obsolete simply because it's not the newest one. Ever notice how every year there's a new model of your favorite car? Or maybe even how every year there are new versions of your favorite laptops or televisions? In this day and age, innovation is the name of the game, and a phrase that encapsulates this concept perfectly is fashion is never finished. In fashion, to be still is to die, which is why clothes go out of style and why designers release new lines every season. This same concept gives perceived obsolescence all of its power. You feel the FOMO having the older model of a car that doesn't do as much as the latest year's version, just like a fashionista would feel that same FOMO constantly wearing clothes that were out of style or out of season. Combining planned and perceived obsolescence is one hell of a business model, but it can be pretty tricky. You see, nobody in their right mind would want to buy a product that they know will both not last a long time and will go out of style just a year later. But if you can do it just right, your customers will not only fall for it, they'll flat out beg you for it. And no company does this better than Apple. Apple claims to have been on the forefront of technology when it comes to the innovation and performance of their products. Sleek designs, fast performance, and exclusive features are all pretty big selling points for Apple, and they sell them pretty damn well. iPhones are by far the best-selling smartphones worldwide, and chances are the last time you bought a new iPhone, your old one worked just fine. Yet, year after year, new models are coming out, and year after year, they only get slightly better. For example, the incremental differences in the iPhone's 12, 13, and 14 models are all so subtle that unless you were using them in a professional capacity, you more than likely wouldn't notice much of a difference in each phone. It's almost as if each new model is promoted just to make you feel like you're the odd one out by not having it. And when you see that the new iPhone has an island instead of a notch, it makes you feel like now all of a sudden your 10-month-old iPhone just doesn't seem all that new anymore. And for those of you who won't fall for the hype and decide to keep your old phones, well, it's only a matter of time before Apple pushes an update that practically bricks your old device. Something that they have actually been caught doing in 2016 with the Batterygate scandal. In 2016, Apple had placed an undocumented tool inside of its software updates that had throttled the performance of its iPhones once the battery hit a certain age, 18 months on average. They claimed this was to protect the device and ensure that the handset wouldn't power off randomly. What they didn't tell people is that while your battery gets older, their phone updates will only require more processing and battery power. And rather than roll out a battery recall or replacement program, the company instead pushed out this feature to cover up the fact that older batteries were not able to cope with the new power demands put on them. And they were actually sued for this again in 2022. And the simple fact that your battery is completely encapsulated in not just your iPhone, but pretty much any Apple device makes your Apple product a really awesome looking, high-performing, socially accepted, ticking time bomb. Because once the battery in the device goes, Apple is going to want to charge you so much just to fix it that you'll end up just wanting to buy a new device anyway. And the sad truth is, we will probably all just buy a new Apple device because iPhones and Apple products have pretty much become status symbols in our society. I'd be lying if I said I never judged a text based off the color of that bubble. Just about every iPhone user has. You see, if people have the money to buy an iPhone, they're more than likely just going to buy an iPhone. And Apple has planned for this from the very beginning of its inception. But why have we become so normalized with this concept? Apple is an easy target to pick on, seeing as how they're literally the most valuable company in the world, but almost every major corporation with a flagship product will combine both planned and perceived obsolescence in the same way that Apple does. It's not just Apple products that have become status symbols. Almost everything you own in some way has become somewhat of a status symbol. And I feel like this is why we have become so normalized with this. We have become so complacent with these practices because we want the newest and coolest things. It doesn't matter what the brand is as long as everyone likes the brand. It's a kind of caveman tribe type of mentality that we all share. We all have that little part of us that wants to be just a little better than other people. And in a modern day society, one of the best ways to do that is to buy the products that everyone else are buying or the products that other people can't afford. People secretly want others to know that they have the it products from afar or just by looking at them. Shoes, clothes, earbuds, laptops, cars, glasses, literally anything you can think of probably has a premium version that's constantly getting remodeled so that you will keep buying a variation of the same product. And we consume it without thinking about it at all. Chances are before watching this, you may not have even heard of what planned or perceived obsolescence were. And that's not really your fault. Companies don't want to be blatant about that. That's why they spend countless amounts of money to hire the best in the business to ensure that people want to buy their products. Corporations will do anything, including cannibalizing certain industries, just to make sure their products are the ones people buy in that niche. Going back to Apple, the Vision Pro's unspoken mission will be to take over the VR headset space and completely knock Meta's Quest out of the playing field. And people are chomping at the bit for when it comes out. But both of these types of obsolescence not only affect our wallets and how we view our products as status symbols, but they also affect the planet in ways that will only get worse as corporations get greedier and greedier. Let's take into consideration electric vehicles and how they have grown in popularity over the last 10 years or so. Tesla, being the best-selling EV currently, may seem like a clean green alternative on the road, but in reality they're just giant batteries on wheels, and batteries are far from environmentally friendly. Tesla charging stations are gas-powered, so essentially the car is gas-powered, and batteries are mined in some of the worst and inhumane conditions imaginable. But to make it all worse, Tesla consistently comes out with new models just like any other car company. They try just as hard to convince you that one reliable car for the rest of your days just simply isn't enough. A marketing practice that was practically invented by General Motors in the 1920s. The thing is, when an EV battery is done, it's done. There's no recharging it, there's no recycling it, it's just a useless dead battery. So what would happen to all those batteries if we completely switched to Tesla and bought a new model every year? Well, that's something that essentially no one has figured out yet. They would more than likely just pile up in landfills until they became a huge problem. The overproduction of products is something we definitely don't need, but we really aren't used to living any other way. And corporations aren't going to change this cash cow of a business model if it keeps working. It would be up to us as consumers to make the conscious decision not to buy, and maybe take a step back to think about our purchases just a little more. In the beginning of Fight Club, Edward Norton's character is a slave to the things he owns. He is always obsessing over the hottest new piece of furniture for his apartment, or his suitcase, or even his ties. He is enslaved to the status symbols in his life. His world is that of a purebred, hot-blooded consumer. And with each new item, he yet again pulls down a curtain of disillusion that shields him from his true self. And as a result, he feels empty inside. He is a shell of a person who can't seem to connect with his emotions, and he doesn't realize that it's actually all because of the so-called things that he obsesses over. Only when he is stripped of them all that he starts to realize that there's a lot more to life. And granted, he starts a guerrilla terrorist group bent on completely destroying the credit system, essentially putting everyone at zero and sending the city into dark spiraling anarchy. He still broke free from the system, just like you can. Next time you see an ad on social media about the new Samsung Galaxy, think about how you only just bought yours 9 months ago. And try to think about the fact that a 1 to 7 year lifespan on a tech product that's upwards of $1,000 is just crazy. We should not be okay with that. And this is what it's kind of come down to. As long as we the people keep buying the new version of a product year after year, corporate profits will just continue to grow, and corporations will have no reason at all to change the way they design and manufacture their products. There are consumer repair-friendly alternatives for just about any product you can think of, but the fact of the matter is, I don't think that anyone will buy them simply because they're not made from the brands that we know and are used to. And notice how I didn't use the word trust there. That's because any brand that implements these kinds of practices in designing and producing their goods simply shouldn't be trusted. But who are we kidding here? I'm not gonna lie to you and say that I don't edit all my videos on Apple computers, that I don't have an Apple Watch and AirPods and an iPhone. I'm not gonna tell you that I don't fall for these same things like most people. I can try to come up with a way to justify it to myself, but in reality, I really like cool new technology. It's just the way that I am. And I'm sure for at least some of you watching, it's the way that you are too. It's not necessarily a terrible thing to try to innovate and come out with new and improved products. Society has come a long way by doing just that in pretty much every field. But that doesn't mean I'm gonna buy a new piece of technology every single time a new model comes out. But my question is, will you?